Police commissioners said the force received 42 reports requesting help this week from Wanville court residents. Rosanna Law says the government is determined to crack down on tourism malpractices during the Golden Week holiday. And the Iranian foreign minister meets with Pakistani officials on possible indirect peace talks with the U.S. Good evening, and thank you for joining us. Police Commissioner Joe Chow said the force received 42 reports requesting help this week from Wanville court residents who returned to their units to recover belongings. The government has set up inquiry centers for Wanville court residents who could also report suspected cases of theft on site. Multiple residents have reported missing items, such as watches and jewelry. Police Commissioner Joe Chow said a dedicated team has been assigned to investigate the cases. Some items were recovered on the spot. He said that since many units were burned to ashes, some items may not be recoverable, and some residents are unsure about what they had and where items were placed. The police chief said initial findings did not indicate theft. Meanwhile, the Independent Committee of Inquiry's hearing has reviewed that the 999 emergency lines were busy on the day of the blaze, and some calls had not been transferred to the Fire Services Department. Chow said police received 4,144 calls for assistance that day, about 35% more than the previous week. Declining to comment on individual cases from the hearing, Chow said police have reviewed the system with the fire services. He admitted that in some situations, calls could not be immediately transferred to the fire services, and officers had to gather basic information and help calm callers. He said authorities aim to step up coordination with fire services in the future. Chow noted Secretary for Security Chris Tang had earlier pledged to increase fire services hotline capacity in the short term, and police will conduct further reviews. Residents of Wanville Court in Tai Po continue to return in batches to retrieve belongings at their fire-hit flats, with Wang Yan House reaching its final day of access. Some residents expressed reluctance to part with their longtime neighbors. For the third day, residents from Wang Cheng House and Wang Yan House headed back to their fire-ravaged flats to collect personal belongings. Many carried suitcases, hiking backpacks, and bags. Some residents from the higher floors of Wang Yan House insisted on climbing more than 20 stories despite mobility issues. One resident, Mr. Max, said he came prepared with a walking stick and knee braces. Having lived there for 43 years since his 20s, he described deep emotional attachment to the neighborhood and how he had been unable to sleep in recent days. The fire not only decimated cherished belongings but also fractured decades-long community ties. Mrs. Max said neighbors here had known each other for over 40 years, and the deep-rooted connections made it very hard to leave. Wang Cheng House, where the fire first broke out, suffered some of the most severe damage and casualties. Some residents brought flowers to mourn those perished in the blaze. Those unable to go upstairs stayed in the cordoned-off area to bid farewell to their former abodes. Mrs. Chan, a Wang Yan House resident, said she is not sure if she would have another chance to return. She added that anxiety had been building as cleanup days approach, having dreamed about searching through personal belongings. Deputy Chief Secretary for Administration Cheuk Wing-hing also inspected the site. Authorities earlier said they would provide additional psychological support to residents of Wang Cheng House and Wang Tai House, which suffered the highest number of fatalities. On Sunday, access will be arranged for residents of Wang Tao House, while Wang Cheng House residents will continue to be granted access until Tuesday. With the mainland's May Day Golden Week holiday approaching, Secretary for Culture, Sports and Tourism Rosanna Law said she has informed the tourism sector of her determination to crack down on malpractices, such as shops forcing tourists to buy items. Mumo Singhai reports.
During the mainland's 5-day May Day Golden Week holiday, about 980,000 tourists are expected to visit Hong Kong. Secretary for Culture, Sports and Tourism Rosanna Law said that hotel occupancy rates in Hong Kong are expected to reach over 90%, and all government departments are prepared to welcome them. Previously, there were incidents of forced shopping, and travel agencies and tour guides involved had their licenses revoked. Law said she has informed the tourism industry of her determination to crack down on such practices, and the Travel Industry Authority will strengthen its inspections during the May Day holiday. Tourists who suspect they are being forced to shop can also file a complaint. Law hinted tourists could film malpractices using mobile phones as possible future evidence. She also said the authorities will strengthen their crackdown on unlicensed taxis, including at airports and land border crossings. The Customs and Excise Department has also joined forces with the Travel Industry Authority to conduct inspections and crack down on fraudulent business practices such as cheating on prices. Law urged the tourism industry not to damage Hong Kong's reputation. Moments 9, TVB News.
U.S. envoys are expected to travel to Pakistan on Saturday in a new bid to salvage ceasefire talks with Tehran, even as Iran ruled out direct negotiations with U.S. representatives as its foreign minister arrived in Islamabad. Danny Rao tells us more.
Pakistan's capital Islamabad appeared to be in a near lockdown hours after Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi arrived for high-stake talks. This as Pakistan attempts to ease tensions between the US and Iran, with much of the world on edge over a war that has snarled crucial energy exports through the Strait of Hormuz, clouded the global economic picture, and caused heavy casualties across the Middle East. Araghchi met with Pakistan's Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar and Army Chief Field Marshal Asim Munir on both Friday and Saturday to discuss the latest regional developments and efforts to promote peace and stability. Araghchi, however, said any Iranian talks with the US delegation would be indirect, with messages conveyed between the two sides by Pakistani officials. Despite this, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said in an interview on Fox News Channel that US President Donald Trump is sending envoys Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner to Pakistan.
The President has decided to dispatch Special Envoy Witkoff and Jared Kushner back to Islamabad. The Iranians want to talk. They want to talk in person, and so the President is, as I've said many times to all of you, always willing to give diplomacy a chance. So we hope progress will be made, and we hope that positive developments will come from this meeting.
Meanwhile, US Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth said Iran has a historic chance to make a deal with the United States and end the war in the Middle East.
On this core mission, America's will is unshakable, our capabilities unmatched. Our blockade is only growing and going global. And as the President said, we have all the time in the world. Iran has a historic chance to make a serious deal, and the ball is in their court. Either way, the War Department stands ready for what comes next, locked and loaded.
Hegseth also hit out at European nations for what he slammed as their lack of involvement in US operations in the Strait of Hormuz. He said they need the Strait of Hormuz much more than we do and might want to start doing less talking and having less fancy conferences in Europe and get in a boat. Iran has kept its stranglehold on traffic through the strait, attacking 3 ships earlier this week, while the US is maintaining a blockade on Iranian ports. US President Donald Trump has ordered his country's military to shoot and kill small boats that could be placing mines. Danarel TV News.
Foreign Minister Wang Yi has been visiting Thailand as part of his 3-nation tour in Southeast Asia. Reaching Bangkok, the second leg of his Southeast Asian trip, Wang Yi met Thai Prime Minister Anutin Chanvirakul. In a light-hearted exchange, Wang told Anutin that the Prime Minister looked younger than in pictures. This marks Wang's first visit to Thailand in 2 years. Ahead of the formal sit-down meeting, Anutin introduced members of his new cabinet, which took office in late March. Wang in turn introduced his delegation, making special mention of Vice Foreign Minister Hua Chunying. Wang said China hopes Thailand will ramp up efforts to combat online gambling and telecom fraud in order to foster a better environment for bilateral relations. As a mutual friend of both Thailand and Cambodia, Wang said China is willing to continue facilitating dialogue and rebuilding mutual trust between the two countries. He added that amid a complex and volatile international landscape, China is ready to strengthen cooperation with Thailand in areas such as new energy, infrastructure, and agriculture, and to work towards building a more stable and prosperous China-Thailand community with a shared future. And Newton said Thailand remains firmly committed to the One China policy and is willing to enhance alignment of development strategies and deepen cooperation across various sectors. He stressed Thailand will take action against online gambling and telecom fraud and thanked China for its efforts in easing Thailand-Cambodia border tensions. Wang's visit to Thailand lasted about 1 day with a tight schedule. In addition to Bangkok, Wang also traveled to Thailand's southern city, Krabi, to co-chair a foreign ministers' meeting with his counterpart, Sihasak Pontiatkel, who's also Thailand's deputy prime minister. His next stop will be Naypyidaw, Myanmar.
And still ahead, elderly woman lost $500,000 worth of properties from her unit in an apparent burglary. Customs and Fire Services Department held 18 joint operations this year to combat illegal fuel activities. And Japan's Minister of Economy, Trade and Industry, Ryosei Akazawa, is planning to visit China next month. Welcome back. An elderly woman has lost about $500,000 worth of belongings after a burglary happened at her Sham Shui Po unit, which has scaffolding outside as the building is under renovation. Mimosa reports.
The burglary happened at Igor Kot's Ian House in Sham Shui Po. Because of a renovation, the affected building is covered by bamboo scaffolding and scaffolding mesh. Police received a report from a 73-year-old woman on Friday saying someone had broken into her unit. The woman claimed she had lost gold jewelry worth about $300,000 and over $230,000 in cash. Sources say the woman checked her windows and doors before leaving the unit at around 9:30 a.m. that day. By the time she returned home at around 7 p.m., the woman found her bedroom window was left ajar and the unit seemed to have been searched. Some residents expressed concerns after the incident. One of them said it would be difficult to monitor the building's security because the bamboo scaffolding could enable people to climb up and reach the units easily. Mums 9, TVB News.
Commissioner of Customs and Excise Chen Zi-tet said this year 18 joint operations with the Fire Services Department were carried out to combat illegal fuel activities.
As pump prices in Hong Kong continue to rise, some drivers refill their tank at illegal fuel stations to cut costs. Some of these illicit stations have also moved into urban districts. The customs chief said illegal fuel stations in urban areas remain relatively rare, but stressed that enforcement efforts will continue. Chan said as of March, joint operations with the fire services have seized over 20,000 liters of duty unpaid petrol and more than 70,000 liters of illicit diesel. Chan noted vehicle owners and drivers who purchase illegal fuel will also face charges. On illicit cigarettes, Chan said 26,000 cases last year involved travelers carrying excess cigarettes into Hong Kong and receiving fixed penalties. Starting this Thursday, a full ban will take effect on the possession of alternative smoking products, including e-cigarettes, in public places. When asked whether mainland tourists might inadvertently break the law during the upcoming Golden Week holidays, Chan said authorities have been conducting extensive publicity.
Last month, Ocean Park carried out the world's first emergency gastric perforation repair surgery on a cow nose ray. The male ray was undergoing a routine health check in late March when veterinarians discovered foreign objects inside its body. They include a fish head and squid remains, along with a severe rupture in the stomach wall. The veterinary team performed a 2-hour operation under full anesthesia. The park noted that surgery on this kind of fish is highly challenging, given the complex procedure in administering anesthesia outside water. The ray is now in stable condition. Japanese media report that Minister of Economy, Trade and Industry Ryosei Akazawa is planning to visit Jiangsu in China next month to attend the APEC Trade Ministers meeting. That's poised to mark the first official visit to China by a Japanese cabinet member since Prime Minister Sanai Takaichi's Taiwan remarks late last year.
According to Kyodo News, the Japanese government is planning to send Akazawa Ryosei to the APEC meeting scheduled for May 20th to 23rd in Jiangsu. If confirmed, he would be the first cabinet-level official to visit China after bilateral relations deteriorated following Sanai Takaichi's comments on Taiwan. Reportedly, Akazawa is expected to seek opportunities to hold separate meetings with senior Chinese officials during the trip. China is hosting this year's APEC Trade Ministers meeting with the theme Building an Asia-Pacific Community to Prosper Together. Kyodo News reports that the meeting is expected to reaffirm the importance of Asia's multilateral trading system, while participants may also discuss China's export controls on dual-use goods. Dual-use items are goods or tech that can be used for both civilian and military applications. Relations between China and Japan worsened after Takaichi said in November that a contingency involving Taiwan could pose a survival-threatening situation for Japan. She has since repeatedly expressed openness to dialogue with China. Beijing has stressed meaningful dialogue must be based on mutual respect and adherence to existing agreements. It has urged Japan to abide by the 4 political documents between the two countries and retract Taiwan-related remarks. Kyodo News also noted increased engagement from Japan's business community with China, with several Japanese business associations planning visits to Chinese cities, including Shanghai, in the coming months. In June, former House of Representatives Speaker Yohei Kono will lead a delegation from the Japan Association for the Promotion of International Trade to visit Beijing.
King Charles III and Queen Camilla will be traveling to the United States to celebrate the 250th anniversary of American independence. They will arrive in Washington on Monday, where they will be greeted by U.S. President Donald Trump. The King and Queen will also visit the British Embassy in Washington, D.C. for a garden party. Tracy Furness has more.
British Embassy staff have been busy preparing the residence and garden for the royal arrival.
I'm a residence assistant here at the British Embassy. We're currently in the ambassador's residence. And residence assistant, that means I'm gardening, I'm also looking after the archives. So here in the archives, we've curated a exhibit showcasing iconic moments from state visits and also artifacts, invites, memorabilia from all the state visits there.
The embassy is also exhibiting photos of previous royal visits.
Here we have the new minted coin for King Charles. So this is the 2026 coin, and there you can see for America 250.
Inside the Churchill Suite is where all the archiving takes place, and there is a scrapbook of a 1939 state visit.
Just to give you an idea of a few of the things, we do have a very fragile newspaper scrapbook that was from Mary R. Marston in Silver Spring, who sent it in and donated it to us. But this was her own documentation of the state visit at the time in 1939.
The challenge for King Charles will be to live up to his mother's example. The late Queen Elizabeth II wowed Congress in 1991 with a speech that celebrated the shared democratic traditions of Britain and the United States and highlighted the long alliance between the two nations.
King Charles III and Queen Camilla are embarking on a 4-day state visit to the United States. Now, this is really a big deal for the King. He follows in the ever-present footsteps of his mother and has to try to give a speech that will match the one she did in 1991. It stressed unity among the peoples of the United States and the United Kingdom. It stressed their common culture, and it stressed the long ties between the military and the governments of both countries.
The visit comes amid tension between the US and Britain. King Charles's trip, when relations were warm between British Prime Minister Keir Starmer and US President Donald Trump. Starmer did not cancel the trip after Trump belittled the British military's sacrifices during the war in Afghanistan and criticised him personally for failing to back the US in Iran. Tracy Furness, TVB News.
Norway is planning to ban children from using social media until they turn 16. Prime Minister Jonas Gahr Støre said the legislation is introduced because for children, play, friendships, and everyday life must not be taken over by algorithms and screens. If the new law is passed, tech companies will be responsible for the task of age verification. New York City's Department of Corrections Commissioner Stanley Richards knows how bleak life can be in a prison, especially Rikers Island, a notorious jail complex he used to be an inmate. In a remarkable redemption, the former prisoner now runs the place. Tracy Furness has more.
Stanley Richards walks down the corridor of his old cell block at Rikers Island.
My cell was somewhere around here.
But now he is New York City's commissioner in the Department of Corrections.
It doesn't give me bad feelings. You know, I offended my community and committed a crime, and I paid my price for it. The truth of my story is a story of redemption. And so leading this department right now, I give all praise to my Lord and Savior to take me from 13 upper to commissioner of the New York City Department of Correction.
In January, Mayor Zoran Mamdani tapped Richards to become the first formerly incarcerated person to oversee the city's jails. His office is inside a converted chapel across from his old cell block. He dropped by his old 10 by 7 foot cell and reflected on how little seemed to have changed, except maybe his perspective. The aging dormitory where Richards was once an inmate before turning his life around was emptied of prisoners 3 years ago due to its deteriorating physical condition. A city law passed in 2019 mandates the closure of all jail facilities on the 400-acre island located just north of LaGuardia Airport by 2027.
You came across the island, you see these buildings. The building we're going to close was built in the 1930s. You see these facilities. This is one of the newer facilities. So you could imagine what the other facilities look like. The people in our care, we're not the judge and jury. That is up to the courts. But when they are sent to us, our responsibility is to care for them. And that's why it's so important to close Rikers. These are very old facilities. And we need to create new facilities, use design that is centered on the humanity of our staff and the people in our care, because they deserve it.
Tracy Furness, TVB News.
And that's the news. Thank you for watching.